nice round here.
Trying to get past Paul Menard. A.J. Allmendinger spins. And Allgaier and Gilliland have a horrible collision right at the start-finish line.
Oh, that's bad.
It is David Gilliland's car that comes to a halt in flames.
Well,
all but destroyed.
Window net going down. That's a beautiful thing. Justin Allgaier as well as David Gilliland.
Gilliland's got his down and he's trying to get out. Gosh, that car was destroyed, man. That thing was... Wow. What a wreck.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is episode 13 of Dirty Air, your number one podcast for all DFS gambling-related NASCAR talk. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Baumel. You can find me gambling DFS tips on Twitter. Jason, DFS NASCAR on Twitter, joins us as well. Jason, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys?
And as always, Brandon Cruz, DFS. Brandon, what's up?
Howdy.
So here's where I'll start. I always ask you guys if I thought this was a good race, but there's a question I got to ask first, and I'm going to ask Brandon first. Now, this is me, once again, knowing little to nothing about how NASCAR cars work and all of this. But I'm going to explain to you what it seems to me I believe happened to Kyle Larson, and you tell me if I'm even close to being correct. But it sounds like that there's a piece of metal or something that they put in front of a radiator to prevent anything from getting into it during the transportation, even though these are in these haulers that really nothing should happen. It sounds like every team does this as a precautionary. And there's basically some sort of a checklist, before, the race where you go down the checklist, you make sure this is taken off, this is done, this is done, this is done. It sounds like they just did not remove that metal piece. It caused the engine to literally blow up the second because there's no air getting into it. Mm-hmm. And is that basically what it is? Because the announcers were almost like, it's got to be a gauge thing. And at that point, it was either it's got to be a gauge thing or it's got to be literally something that shouldn't be there, like a bird. That's what I thought. Like a bird got into it. Did I explain that right? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, so basically they just had the motor sealed off. And quickly, for those that do care, I did put a whole video of me and my friends watching the races this weekend, because people do get a kick out of that and ask for it from time to time. But we were joking around, like, come on, it's not the gauge, it's not the sensor. Like, I forgot his crew chief, but he was like, Kyle, it's just the gauge. What are you talking about? Like, it's digital dash, and so either the sensor is wrong or the digital dash is wrong. But yeah, they basically had to just welded shut, basically. I know, not actually, but it was basically just shut, so there was absolutely no air going to it. It was like if you disconnected the radiator.
As quick as that motor got hot, though, it had to throw him for a loop. Like it's got to be a gauge problem. Like, why is this motor blowing up on the goddamn pace laps?
Well, yeah, because Larson was like, "Hey, this isn't sounding right. It's not acting right." And they're like, "No, Larson, it's just the gauge, driver.
Yeah, I got to be
Listen, we got engineers. We got engineers over here. You're a driver. Just drive the car. We'll figure it out." And they're like, "He's like, no, guys, I'm blowing up."
So, is that somebody's got to get fired, right?
For Hendrick Motorsports, maybe, I don't know.
That's something that can't happen on a team like that, because that ruins it ruins literally the entire weekend.
A lot of money.
Yeah. The whole Hendrick cars are really getting their sponsorship paid there, since it's just Rick. I don't know. I guess they really didn't lose money. That's Hendrick's teams anyway, but it's Hendrick's company anyway. But I'm sure somebody got chewed out really bad. But I don't think they got fired.
So
depends on how high up the totem pole the guy was that made the mistake, as if they get fired or not.
Amazing that happens without any practice yet again.
And that's kind of what I was going to ask, though, is like people talk about how like every race team has like this checklist that you do before, basically. Is that like a $15 an hour employee doing a checklist, or is that like the assistant to the crew chief? Like, is that, are we talking high up guys that are like, they're the final check of this car? It has to be, right?
I would say it's the people pulling it off the truck, probably, right? That's probably the first part. Mm-hmm. First checklist, I would say.
Yeah, ever since NASCAR started using the rosters, like other sports, because they didn't have a limit. So like if you were Hendrick, you could bring as many people as you wanted to the racetrack. But now, since there's like a roster, I think it's like 12 guys, including the crew members and all the specialists there, like whoever had that on his checklist. Obviously, didn't do it.
All right. Well, Jason, I'll ask you then. Did you think it was a good race? I know we saw some tandem, some 3 wide at some point, and then at some point we turned into follow the leader. What did you think of the race?
Yeah, I thought it was a good race. I mean, it's typical of what we would typically see from Talladega. Started off, they were very in a racing mood. They were going 2-3 wide, a lot of different leaders. It got a little boring there in the beginning where they started freight training, but that typically happens in the middle. We had a couple close calls. We had a spectacular wreck with Logano. I mean, it's about everything you could ask for out of Talladega. A good finish. Had some, definitely a lot of white knuckle moments where you thought things were going to turn south, and it was exciting television. I was happy with it.
How does Bubba Wallace basically clip Joey Logano while he's flipping at 180 miles an hour is what Bubba was going, something like that, and have little to no damage? I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's just luck, but man, that footage, the in-car camera of that on TV was spectacular. The slow motion. I mean, it's a great shot. I mean, they'll be using that for quite some time, I'm sure.
That shot is like, as somebody tweeted, I forgot who tweeted, but they said that's the shot like a NASCAR video game puts like in the introduction video. Like that's how you get somebody to play like a video game. Like that's what it looked like. Brandon, what did you think of the race?
I thought it was. I mean, look, I wasn't entertained because I get annoyed with the whole manufacturer saying that you can't push another manufacturer. You got to work team orders, basically manufacturer orders. I think that's kind of ruined this style of racing because obviously you see the Toyotas sticking together, you see the Ford sticking together, and then whoever's in line just throws blocks at other manufacturers that aren't theirs, and I think that's hurting the value and the entertainment factor of these races. Like for example, the Logano wreck. Why did that wreck happen? Because Logano didn't want to make a move. Because Blaney didn't want to make a move. Team orders, man. Ford stay on the high side, they wreck. What happened to Newman? Ryan Blaney did not want to pass Ryan Newman to win the 500. He said he was going to push him, and he flipped over. And so my friends and I were joking, and it's kind of how it is, but it's basically like if you're not trying to race, you're going to end up upside down, Like if you don't race, you die, basically. Your car's wrecked. So like a lot of these guys, kind of letting off or trying not to, pass anyone, that's almost causing more wrecks in these blocks or anything like that.
And obviously looking back on it, you can always say, ifs and buts and all that stuff. But from you, while you were watching the race and also looking back on it, Matty D, those last 2 laps, you were talking about the manufacturers and staying whether he's low or high, and obviously he was having Brad push him at the bottom, and then he moved up top, and then he kind of tried to come back low, and then kind of got caught in the middle, and then he moved back up, and Reddick moved out of line, and then that whole top line kind of whatever. Did you think he made the right move and it just didn't whatever, or he should have stayed in front of Brad for the most part?
He should have stayed on the inside line. I don't know why he went to the outside lane. I mean, when I saw that, I knew he lost the race.
You got the guy who's been the best pusher all goddamn race. Brad Keselowski behind you, he's pushed everybody that whole race. The best car pushing behind you, and he's going to push him to the win. Maybe Kes tries to pass him in the tri-oval, right? But Kes is going to push him all the way. I have no idea why he moved up.
Or we even saw with how they were racing, the outside lane didn't have the advantage that it normally has. And throughout the whole race, you had guys blocking to the outside lane, entering 3 and entering 1. I have no idea why Matt Benedetto went to the outside, entering 1 on that, taking the white flag.
He does what Matty does.
Absolutely,
he chokes. He chokes.
Absolutely,
did
no
they
sense
interview
at all.
him after the race at all?
I'm sure he did. He was probably
Was he
crying again.
God, tell me he wasn't crying again. I am so
no, he wasn't
cry in post race.
He wasn't crying. It was just you could just he was sad. It was a depressed hey, I know I blew it again. We're getting close and I keep screwing it up and it's one of these times I'm gonna get it right. It was almost more of a disappointed with himself kind of thing.
You could see he was misty-eyed though, I bet, right?
Oh, for sure. Matty D will be misty-eyed if he has a good race in 12th. That's just what he is.
Yeah, he starts crying and be like, "Oh, my career has led up to this moment."
Yeah.
Jason, Brad Keselowski, he's got to be the number 1 opportunity driver in NASCAR. It feels like when he does have stinkers of races, but it seems like consistently he puts himself in a spot where if somebody makes a mistake, Brad Keselowski's there to win it, especially at a super speedway.
Yeah, a lot of his wins throughout his career has always been just right place, right time. Strategy. He's obviously a hell of a speedway racer. What's this, his fifth win at Talladega?
Sixth
Sixth win at Talladega. Yeah, and I actually went back and looked that obviously the only lap he led was the last lap. It's the second time he's done that, and it's only happened 4 other times in the entire history of Talladega. So he's 2 of those times is Brad Keselowski. So it's pretty crazy. Like you said, he's going to always be there at the end. He knows how to make that move on the end, which is key to these races.
And thank God I did the math wrong, because I had a bet on that race that there would be under 17 and a half lap leaders. So basically there would be less than 18 cars that would lead a lap. And I thought that there was already 17 going to that last lap. And there was like 4 cars up front that they had already led a lap. So it's basically like, as long as Brad Keselowski doesn't win this race, I'm good. And then Brad Keselowski won the race. And then I realized I did the math wrong, and he ended up being 17. So that was good. But the other thing that I realized, I was like one of those, I was like disappointed. And then I like looked at my account. And I was like, where is that money there? And then I went back and counted. I was like, oh, I just counted wrong, which is, I love to be wrong in that kind of stuff. Brandon, the final question I have for you about this in terms of like pushing and how drivers are comfortable and stuff like that. I guess certain drivers are better pushers. Certain drivers are comfortable with being pushed more. I know one of the radioactive clips that I listened to was Blaney when Harvick was behind him. Blaney said, tell the Ford to give me everything he's got. I can handle what he wants to do. Basically, Blaney saying, push me as hard as you want. I can handle whatever. Is that a thing where certain drivers are only comfortable being pushed at a certain speed? Certain other drivers are only better? I mean, how's that work?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the manufacturers too. Ford literally has a flat nose. I hate to, pin it to that, but Chevys can't push as well as the Fords can. And if you had to rank the cars in terms of how well they push or how well they are aerodynamically, it's the Fords, Toyotas, than Chevys, because Chevy decided to make a pointed front end, and you can see that because anytime Byron is shoving someone, he's almost always getting someone sideways. And going back to my team argument there, the wreck that included Hamlin when he was a lap down, and the Chevy guys, yet again, team orders. Truex is having to stay behind Hamlin, and they wreck. It's just the team orders that keep causing these wrecks. But yeah, like the Fords push better, and who pushes well. In terms of veteran drivers, or in terms of guys who just have a knack at this type of stuff.
And so, Jason, Brandon was kind of talking about it with terms of the Fords being good pushers. Is Michael McDowell now a good speedway? I mean, he's always been a decent super speedway driver, or is the fact that he's in a Ford with a bunch of fast Fords, up there where, like we said, he's not, they're not going to wreck him, until, we're trying to race for the end. He's a Ford. He can be in that line being pushed. That's something to look forward to. Look good. What the question is.
Yes, we like Michael McDowell going forward in super speedways as long as he's on a Ford and he's running up here with these guys. Yeah, he's always contender if he makes it through the wreck, like any of these guys. I mean, he can find himself in position to win, just like he showed us at the 500. Like, I don't know if I would be betting my mortgage the next short super speedway on him, but.
Well, I mean, I want to add back to the Brad Keselowski talk. Brad has always been extremely awesome at speedways. He's just been caught up in wrecks. I mean, this race, it was parody. Using the wrong word. Anyway, it was just like the 500, Keselowski was there at the end. McDowell was there at the end. I mean, the same guys who, if the race goes green and they're not caught up in wrecks, it's normally the same guys up in the front of the plate races every time.
Yeah, and if Logano doesn't flip, I imagine he's right there with those guys too, running well,
Mm-hmm.
So I did pick Keselowski as an outright winner this weekend, though. So I hit that, and I hit the winner in the Xfinity. So it's a pretty good weekend on me hitting some bets, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, feel free to take my job whenever you want it.
No, I'm good. Super speedways is all right because anybody can win. You just pick some higher odd guys. So I don't really bet any other weeks.
I know it's hard to kind of learn anything, specific from super speedway. We talked obviously a little bit about the Fords, Brandon. Anything else that you learned this weekend that you're going to remember going forward at super speedways or any other racetrack?
There's not really any data that I'm going to really take away. I mean, it's a plate race, and they're their own animal. I will say this from a fan's perspective: this is probably the best package we'll probably have for the next 15 years, because I'm sure NASCAR will neuter the cars or the package for the next gen, and especially look, nobody cares when a no-name wrecks, but if it's a big name driver, Logano, and he calls it dangerous, that's when NASCAR steps up. If you look at or even compare Brennan Gaughan and Logano, nearly identical flips, and Gaughan's like, whoa, man, we're racing. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to race, not to pace. This is a racetrack. We're here to race. And Logano's like, man, this is stupid. Like, come on, Logano. That's why I don't like Logano, man. I like real racers.
Show me, what racing is not dangerous. There are guys around the country who get hurt seriously and killed on local short tracks going 110 miles an hour. Racing is inherently going to be dangerous. They know that going in. What are we going to do? Are we going to just freaking get rid of Daytona and Talladega? There's no way. Every time they try to slow them down, what happens, Brandon? They're more bunched up. It's more hive. Instead of being 3 wide, they're going to be 4 wide, and it's and you know what? Thankfully we haven't seen is a vicious, T-bone driver side impact, recently. Because, those are a hell of a lot more scary than tumbling through the air, and we've been getting lucky on that. God forbid we see that and with what Twitter will do.
I don't know, man. Like I said, people think I'm kind of joking, but I watch. Everybody kind of knows I don't really care about NASCAR. A ton is I'm actually invested in it, other than watching it for DFS purposes, and certainly plate tracks. I'm here to watch wrecks, man. I'm here for crashes, and that would have been one hell of a highlight if Bubba was 3 feet to the right. I'm here for wrecks and excitement. That's why I watch.
And I'm not being insensitive to the idea that it's dangerous. I've been a fan for a long time. I went through Dale Earnhardt dying. I went through Kenny Irwin Jr. dying. I went through Adam Petty dying. I went through all this stuff. So it's I guess it's just weird seeing fans now react this way when a guy gets out. Fine. It's good. Thank you. That's what safety is supposed to do. He got out. That's good. Let's be thankful. But you can't just change the way racing is because a car flipped. They're always going to flip. It's physics.
Yeah, and I don't like current NASCAR, but almost weekly I'll throw on a race on YouTube while I'm doing my work from 2004, 2003, early 90s, 80s. Sometimes I watch old IndyCar races, and part of what made those guys so great, like AJ Foyt, yeah, sure, he's an awesome race car driver, but he also made it through that era, when so many people did die. That was part of the attraction for racing, and it's weird to see people freaking out over Logano's wreck, and I don't know.
I always compare it to UFC and I guess boxing in the same way, where in terms of if the freak accident were to happen, you know what you're signing up for getting into that car. You know what you're signing up for getting into the octagon, getting into the ring. If something crazy happens, it's not like it's a sport where it's a basketball or a baseball, where something like that is really, really crazy. This is NASCAR is not a contact sport, but it is a contact sport. It's you're putting yourself in a vehicle, especially weeks like this. You're going 200 miles an hour. You know what you're signing up for. Nobody wants that to happen. And everyone's like Jason said, the safety, that's what you expect to happen. We hope to see them get out of the car and expect that. But if the worst happens, it's they knew what they signed up for getting in that car.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're a basketball player, you're LeBron James, and you happen to be playing a game and get ran over by a car in the middle of the court. We need to make sure that never happens again.
Right.
That's not supposed to happen in basketball. But this is racing, and sometimes cars go airborne.
Yeah, that's why I don't get the whole Logano. I don't get what he's saying there. You're a race car driver, man. I plan on getting a car next year and going local racing. I'm well aware of the risk. This is not a time to go and be oh, this is too dangerous. I don't get that at all. And you're a UFC guy, Ryan. It could be an easy fight or a clean fight, and then there's some fights where it's literally a bloodbath and 2 guys are bleeding all over each other. But that's just part of the sport,
Yep, it's what you sign up for. Once you're and you're getting paid to do it. I don't want to make it seem like that way, but it's hey, you and certain things you get paid more money to do it because it's inherently more dangerous or risky or that kind of in boxing or UFC. Once you start facing these guys that are these monsters, you get paydays because if they knock your head off sideways, you're at least compensated for it. Anything we missed from last week before we get into this week?
I don't think so. I'm good.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Tired of losing in fantasy sports? Times are changing. Now it's just you versus the numbers. Prize Picks is the perfect place for you whether you are the biggest sports fan around or you're a seasoned vet in the daily fantasy space. On Prize Picks, you simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go over or under their fantasy projection. Think Denny Hamlin is going to win the big race? Take his over and win real cash today. Prize Picks gives you the chance to win 10 times your money for getting 4 predictions correct. Entries are so simple. They can be made in less than 60 seconds. Sign up today at prizepicks.com or on the Prize Picks app and use code DIRTYAIR, that's DIRTYAIR, DIRTYAIR, to get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Prize Picks truly is daily fantasy simplified.
All right, so this week we go to the official worst name I've ever seen on a NASCAR race. It is the Bushy McBush Race 400, Kansas Speedway. It is 400 miles, 267 laps, 80 laps in stage 1, 80 laps in stage 2, 107 in stage 3. Brad Keselowski is on the pole. William Byron, Michael McDowell, Kevin Harvick, Matty D round out the top 5. What, Jason, initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts, obviously, we're coming out of Talladega, which is a crazy week, so that means we're going to have a lot of guys starting from the back. It's made a lot of position differential on the slate that a lot of people are going to chase. We're going to have to make some decisions with some of these guys we're playing, and DK priced up a lot of guys, but I don't think they priced up some guys as much as they should. Typically we're coming to these tracks and we're looking for dominator points, and if we look at some guys who I think are going to get the dominator points, they're kind of priced in that 9K range, and they're priced up, and you're paying up out the ass, it looks like, for this for some position differential.
And Brandon, we can get into some specifics in a little bit in terms of salaries and everything, but is that kind of the right strategy to play that way? I know last year when we came out of COVID, obviously when we had, if you wrecked the week before, you basically were starting in the back. There wasn't even any formula they put to it. And I know we got like $12,000 Jimmy Johnson at like Darlington or Charlotte when he started, 39th or 40th. They've priced up Alex Bowman this week. I think he starts somewhere in the mid 20s. Where is that kind of the way to chase it, or are you still like you normally do, the guys that you plan to lead the laps and have the fastest cars?
So I fully expect this race to be a pain in the ass from the DFS perspective, because this is a racetrack that we normally see a lot of two-tire pit stops, a lot of crazy strategy, and guys who have the best car not leading. We've seen that a lot in the past. Or like we see them lead, but we don't see them literally dominate the race.
Right.
Last year...
So go back to Brad Keselowski is what you're saying.
I don't know. Like, it's tough. Like, obviously there's a lot of data to look at. I'm going to mainly look at how they performed this year. I'm not going to really look at the Kansas race in the fall last year, since it was so cold, and that was more of an anomaly than anything. And this race is going to be warmer than that, and you saw some guys perform well in the fall who didn't perform well in the spring. And, that whole weather situation, I'm not really concerned there. But looking at this year, like, Keselowski can miss on the setup. However, a lot of the quote-unquote real dominators, that you would normally consider, not counting William Byron here, but I'm talking about like the big names, Truex, Hamlin, Larson, they're all starting in the back. So they're not necessarily going to be the ones that overtake Keselowski if he messes up. It's most likely going to be someone like Byron, DiBenedetto, Harvick, even Bell or Blaney up there. And so you're not going to see your 10K guys really have a chance to lead until like maybe, the competition caution, maybe late into stage 1. And so that makes it really, that's why I say a pain in the ass this week, because I foresee, at least 3, probably, there's a possibility even the 4 the 10K guys don't even hit value, and they kind of bust right off the bat, because sure, they have place differential there, but if they get outscored by people leading laps, they're going to be useless. This opens up almost a totally different type of lineup construction than we've seen this year.
Jason, similar strategy in terms of the data you're looking at, or how are you looking at this?
I'm thinking, like, at least with my initial projections and what I've looked into, like, I think Kyle Larson at the top here, starting 32nd. Like, I think he's as fast as he's been on mile and a halves. Like, you can chalk him up for probably just 25 fastest laps, just because that's kind of what we've seen out of him. Atlanta, he had 104. Vegas, which is kind of what I'm looking at more, is towards Vegas, because Vegas is probably the most similar to Kansas out of the mile and a halves we've been at so far this year. He had 57 fastest laps, 18 at Homestead. So I think you can chalk him up for probably 25 fastest laps, and with how he showed a top 5 finish, he's going to return great value at 11.3. And then from there, like, you can make a case against these other guys. Like, Logano hasn't been that spectacular on the mile and a half so far this year. Hamlin, he was decent at Homestead, But I mean, his laps he led at Las Vegas was more for track position, and then he still only didn't put up a ton of dominator points. So I can see Hamlin busting. So yeah, I think like you can go with like one of these position different guys, and then like a lot of the value that I have projected right now is in this 9,700 to like 8,600 range. Like I have all these guys projected over 5x value, and like 5 of them projected over 5.5x value right now, which is I only have 2 guys above that 10K range marked at over 5.5x value.
Brandon, Austin Cindric, $6,700. He starts, I think, 38th. Is there any reason I shouldn't be playing him in every single lineup?
No. He'll probably be a cornerstone of a lot of my lineups. I think that's far too cheap, and it like going back to, let's say, Hamlin, for example, because again, obviously he's won 2 of the last 3 races here, but let's say, for example, Hamlin doesn't win this race, and I don't want to pay 10-8 for just a place differential play. Of course, I would just go down and save basically $4,000 playing Austin Cindric, even if Cindric gets to 22nd, and Hamlin will get up to say like 9th or 8th or something like that. I'd much rather pay for Cindric just because he opens more in the lineup.
Jason,
yeah, I like Cindric. I mean, this week, we've been projecting him each week to finish around 22nd, and that's about where he's ran at. I can see him running around that again this week, but he's actually priced to a point where 22nd position gives us a nice return on our value. And so, yeah, he's probably going to be pretty chalky, but I mean, I think at this point, with the way Wax Construction is going to go, you're going to be able to be different anyway with a lot of other places. Because I imagine a lot of people are just going to cram the position differential. I think we're going to get guys like Blaney at a very low ownership. I love Blaney this week, starting 7th. I mean, the guys had speed on these mile and a halves. I mean, Las Vegas, he had 16 fast laps, 28 at Atlanta, top 5 in average running position, both those races. I like Blaney going into this week. He's going to go overlooked. Harvick, is a guy, 9,100 for Harvick. Kyle Busch sitting here at 8,600. He actually ran well here last year in the fall. I mean, yeah, you're going to need to save some money to get a lot of those guys in, and I think that's going to be a little bit different. So I think you can go ahead and eat that chalk down there.
I'll tell you right now, I haven't made any lineups. We're talking about this on a Wednesday. Still a lot of things to go till we get to Sunday, but I love the idea of putting Byron, Blaney, Bell, and Busch, Kyle Busch, that is, in a lineup. Like I just feel like I'm going to go lineups with a lot of 9K and 8K ranges, and maybe one 10K guy, but I mean, I'd love Byron starting 2nd. I think he can show a lot of speed here, and I think he can run well. Harvick, right. I mean, I think he's too cheap. And Harvick's issue this year has been, obviously, if he arrives at the racetrack with a bad setup, that's just how it is. But it's also that he's been having to start right near everybody else who's been fast, off the trailer. Him starting 4th, I can guarantee you, I would put money saying that Harvick is going to get by Michael McDowell pretty quickly. Then the only guy he has to worry about is Byron and Keselowski. Christopher Bell. There's a good chance he'll be in the top 5 within the first, 5 laps. And so it's plays like that where if those guys can get up there and lead laps, or if those guys can stay up there, that's why I don't like the idea of paying up for more than like one place differential play of the 10K guys.
Yeah, and I don't mind it going to Harvick at all this week because I imagine, like I said, a lot of people are going to start with 2 of those guys in that 10K range. It's not going to leave a lot of people enough room to go here to hit another guy in this 9K range. It's just not. I mean, Harvick's going to come in very low owned, starting 4th. I mean, if we didn't know what we know, obviously he struggled a little bit, but we saw Atlanta. He ran a little better at Atlanta. What do you have, like 12 fastest laps there? So I know he didn't finish as well. So I can definitely like going there with the low ownership.
So the guy at the bottom of the 10Ks who's priced up, and I actually like his pricing this week, Alex Bowman starts 25th. He's been pretty fast most of the year. With what Brandon said at the beginning, I think Bowman's an interesting play because he does have some place differential built in. He could very easily have one of the faster cars here. Catches a caution at the right time. Who knows? He's, at a restart starting top 5, top 7, and, all of a sudden could be leading laps. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Bowman at 10-2?
I would much rather play Hamlin at 10-8, but I mean, I assume I'll end up playing both. I like the speed that Hamlin has. Like head to head, Hamlin and Bowman, I would much rather lean Hamlin there.
But do you think they priced Bowman up enough that he's not going to be, I thought he was, he could have been, in that 9K range, kind of in that, I don't know, I guess in that Kurt Busch Blaney range, that 9,500. Price him up to 10-2. Is that enough to make people not want to play him, or you think he's still going to be fairly popular?
He'll probably be popular. Probably him and Larson. This is weird. Like, this is the one time where, DraftKings has kind of done what I've wanted them to do for a long time and just price everybody in the back up.
Except for Cindric.
Price everybody high. All the potential, race winners. Just put them all astronomically high. And so you really, like, I like Logano. If I had to choose between Hamlin, Bowman, Logano, and Larson, I think I'd go Logano just because I think he'll have less ownership. And I'm not saying that because he won the fall race last year. I just, I think he has a good enough shot as anyone back there to get through the field. The reason I'm hesitant on playing so many of these guys in the back is that we've seen the dirty air on this track. I used the name of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, these guys, you kind of get trapped in a running position. You can't really make as many moves, and this is a very aero-sensitive track. Like, this is a one groove racetrack in all seriousness. Yeah, sure, you'll see some guys running high, some guys running low, but when you get up to the lead or when you get up in the top 5 like we've seen this year, you kind of just get stuck, running 5th, 6th, and that's just going to help whoever's leading, stay up there. And then, like I said, I think we're going to see guys taking 2 tires, and so you'll see some idiotic value play sneak into the optimal lineup on the last restart.
Bubba Wallace.
It's crazy.
I think what's more interesting though about this slate, though, if we look at it, like, I understand, like, okay, they priced everybody up and starting in the back, but if we look in this, like, we have some odd pricing. I feel like on some of these guys in the 7K range. You got Matty D starting 5th for 7,700. That, like, it seems way overpriced for Matty D starting 5th. And Austin Dillon starting 6th for 7,500. Newman starting 14th for 7,400. Like, Bubba starting 13th for 72. Cole Custer starting 10th for 71. I mean, like, can you go to this range at all?
No, like, there's a chance I don't even build lineups there.
Yeah, I just
even
don't
Eric
think you
Jones
can.
is horrible. Like,
he's going to be popular, but I mean, I only got, like I said, 30 points, so I got him for like 19th. Maybe you can see him getting to, but I mean, that's not 7,800 yet. That's not enough.
And we can go through and do some more of the salaries, but Brandon, the first guy that jumped off to me was obviously Austin Cindric at 6,700, just way too cheap. The other guy, which I was surprised by his pricing, Anthony Alfredo, is $4,500. I mean, they're basically almost giving you to him at a free square because he's not starting all the way at the back. He's not starting at the front. I mean, Alfredo at 4,500. What's the thoughts there?
I have not made my projections yet. What do you have, Alfredo?
I have him right now for a 26th place finish for 11 points. So, I mean, it's looking like at least my thought with Alfredo, like, he's definitely an option as just if you are just looking to punt. Like, he's the definition of punt, right?
How much do you have? Sorry, I'm talking over you. How much do you have Quinn Hoff projected for? Because I don't have mine yet.
7. I have him for a 33rd finish. Like, yeah, Quinn Hoff is probably a little bit more interesting.
So, in that situation, because I needed some context, because I like I said, I didn't make my projections yet.
Sure.
So, if that's the case, let's say Alfredo, shits the bed again, like he keeps doing.
Right.
Let's say he finishes in the high 20s, or he finishes in the 30s. I mean, then he's going to be. I mean, Quinn Hoff can outscore him. Cody Ware can outscore him. Why am I going to pay $4,500 for somebody starting 22nd when I could pay $100 more and maybe get one more point from that? I feel like Anthony Alfredo is a bit of a trap play. Now, if he does well, if he holds his position, obviously he'll probably be optimal. I think let's see, last time I said about Hamlin, I got a lot of shit for it. But let's say I think if Alfredo can finish 24th, 25th or better, I'd say he's optimal. I say if he finishes probably 26th, I'll say if he finishes 28th, he's not optimal, but there's a chance that he is optimal at like 24th, 23rd, 20th, just because you can shove so many good guys in your lineup because of the price.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of played around a little bit with constructing lineups with him in there, and I found myself landing on, like, in that range where I really want to be at. So I don't think it really helped me.
That's what I think.
Like I said, that was my first track through building. Maybe I haven't seen anything that I might see later, but I mean, and it's like you said, he could definitely crush your lineup. 20 if he finishes 28th. But he did, just for what it's worth, if anybody is considering, he did have the 25th best average running position at Vegas. So 25th isn't out of. I mean, it would be isn't out of question. He could finish 25th, but most likely he's going to crush your lineup.
And I mean, it all comes. I think Alfredo's the easiest play to determine if he's optimal or not. And I know that sounds kind of dumb because everybody can be optimal or they can't be optimal. But Alfredo, the example I just gave out there, like, I think he's easy to pinpoint, like, finishing, 24th. If you project him for that, I would, if I projected Alfredo to hold his position or finish 24th, I would do 100% of him. Like,
I don't think you can project that, though. I can't.
Like I can't either. Like, I want to put that out. Like, if you believe Alfredo is going to finish 22nd or finish 21st or something, and you, honest to God, project that with your life and your wife's life and your children's life on it, like, you would bet the farm on that.
Don't do it.
Then I would,
Well, if you're doing that for your projections in
gambling.
NASCAR, you're in the wrong sport.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Really, I think, like, to me, with this slate, where your value is coming from, at least me looking at it right now with my projections and where I'm seeing the value, it's going to be in the 6,100 to 67 range. Just Cindric, Chastain, Buescher. Like, Buescher at 6,100 starting 16th with the way Roush has been on mile and a half and the way he's performed, I mean, 7th best average running position at, I can scroll up here. At Homestead, he ran very well at Atlanta, 10th best average running positions, picked up a couple fast laps at Atlanta. I mean, I think he could definitely finish top 12 here. They're normally good with pit strategy. They're always trying something different. He's a car you could see probably up front off of a 2-tire stop, like Brandon mentioned. I think Buescher, Suarez, Chastain, Cindric, that range is, I think, where you're going to be dipping to for value on the slate.
All right, let me run through this.
One last thing here. So I can already tell you, I'm probably going to have a lot of Chastain, and I had 40% of Haley at Richmond, and I'll probably do the same thing again. I can already see a lot of my lineups being around Chastain and Justin Haley.
So let me just run through this range real quick in terms of the pricing. I'll throw a couple guys out there, and then Brandon, you mentioned a couple of them, and I know you haven't necessarily done projections yet, but just kind of winging it. If you think you have any to little to a lot of interest in any of these guys. Tyler Reddick, 6,900. Austin Cindric, 6,700. Chastain is 65. Suarez is 63. Buescher, 61. Briscoe, 6K. And Michael McDowell, 5,800. Anything jump off there? Obviously, we talked about Cindric, and you just talked about Chastain a little bit. Anything else jump off at you?
So, yet again, in a race where I think we're going to have pit road strategies come into factor, who are the teams in this range that we've seen kind of mess around with strategies, either taking 2 tires or staying out on long runs? Suarez would fall into that. We've seen Buescher lead at Homestead. He would kind of fall into that as well. Tyler Reddick, the RCR with their AI algorithm, those would be the guys that I would project to possibly lead laps because of, a pit call or a strategy. And we've seen if there's usually like 3 to 4 to 5 guys take 2 tires at this race at some point in a caution or during pit stops. And so say if you have, I think Pierce made this exact example that I'm thinking about it, but say you have Martin Truex Jr. and he shows up and he's the fastest car, and then we have a caution and he drove his way up to second, and we go into pit road, and then 4 guys stay out, or 4 guys take 2 tires, and so that would put Truex starting like 6th or 5th, and so even though he drove up to the field, he still has to pass people, and then you're paying up for Truex, and he doesn't lead those laps. He gets up there, but he doesn't lead those laps. Meanwhile, you have a value play at like 6K or something like that, taking laps away. Like, I don't know. That, yet again, going back, that's why I'm not looking forward to this race.
Jason, how would you attack the 6K range? I know you mentioned a couple guys, but is that a similar strategy, or are you looking place differential and just straight up projections?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely that's definitely interesting. I like the call there with Reddick that he could finish to it. But yeah, it's these same guys that I would rank them as Cindric as my favorite. Then actually no, I would rank them Busher, Cindric, Chastain, Suarez. But I'm gonna have probably a lot of these guys. Like that's where I'm gonna be going to for value is probably those four guys. I don't think I'm gonna venture too much into Reddick or Briscoe.
All right, and if we drop down to that range right after it, it sounds like you might not necessarily have to get there as much, especially if you're starting your lineups at the Blaney, Harvick in that 9K range or the bottom of the 10K. But for those
Larson,
who are
Larson in every lineup, no.
assuming that the engine's not cut off this week and that it can get some air.
I just want to say, like, I put out some rankings this week of where I ranked everybody as far as DFS plays. I tweeted them, and Larson was my top play. And I've got some people like slacking back, like, oh, can you trust Larson this week? Like, are you sure we can trust that team? Like, if people are really thinking that right now, going into another mile and a half track, like we're not gonna get him at a low ownership, but what if we get him at like 35? I don't know, when he should be like 60% owned on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be a lot more concerning if his engine actually blew up and we didn't, they didn't know why it blew up. That would be obviously a lot more concerning than knowing why. But yeah, getting into this 5K range, we did talk about Michael McDowell a little bit. Ryan Preece is 5,600, Corey LaJoie 55, Garrett Smithley 54, Mills is 53, Haley's 51, Balicki's 5K. Then we get into those other guys we talked about a little bit about. Gase 49, McLeod 48, Cody Ware 47, Quinn Hall 46, Alfredo 45. Brandon, anybody down here or no reason to really go down here?
So it all comes back to Alfredo, and I think we really do need to talk about Alfredo in more detail. Let me come up with let's say you want to play Alfredo and let's say you want to go Suarez, right, in the lineup. That gives you $9,800 left for your remaining four drivers. And that's why I think the Alfredo talk is so important, because if Alfredo can produce, I would say if he can give you 12, 13, maybe 14 points, for $4,500 in a car that is far superior than the Rick Ware cars, a car that should be, a 23rd, 24th, 22nd place finisher car, outside of Alfredo driving it. Like, that lineup construction seems optimal. Like, if he works out, you could easily get Larson, Hamlin in a lineup together with Bell or somebody else like that. Like, Alfredo is a real. He needs to be a real discussion this week, and I'm curious what other people are going to say later in this week.
What do we think?
Yeah, I think if you, like I said, that's kind of what I said in the beginning. Like, you're looking at Alfredo, he's kind of just like the definition of a punt. Like, you're just like, that's what a punt should be. It's like, you're going to go ahead and punt this position. You just want 12 points, or if you just don't want him to kill you, and like, you don't want him to finish 30th and destroy your lineup. I think in that range, but he does. He is interesting there.
Yeah,
I mean, as dirt cheap. I mean, and also like in a car that I mean, if things work out strategy wise, finds himself in the late lap, late restart. I mean, I've seen stranger things than Anthony Alfredo finish in like 19.
Yeah, like I would honestly give it to Alfredo like 35% chance of being optimal, 65% not. I mean, I think it's like that.
So is this the kind of track you're like when Jason talks about a punt like that, when obviously you're trying to score as many points at the top and have your bottom guy not kill you? Is this the kind of race you're trying to do it at, or are you trying to look at a race where maybe you've got another 100 or 150 laps? I know they like the one they run at Charlotte, like something like that, where you could literally have a guy get 150 whatever points, and basically at this point you're just trying to do that. Or is this kind of that mile and a half racetrack where it's not a super speedway, so you're not going completely place differential, where punts could be in play for you, Brandon?
So let me answer it like this: like if Alfredo is optimal, that would mean that the place differential payups would also be optimal, because I would find it hard to believe that Alfredo's optimal and somebody like Larson or Logano or Bowman or Hamlin, like they're not optimal. So I think if you think, or let me answer your question. So Alfredo's a different punt related to like the Rick Ware cars. Like those cars, they need chaos to score well, like at Martinsville or wherever Balicki was optimal at this year. Like the way that they were optimal is that a lot of other cars, either good or bad, like they had bad days, they DNF'd, and they were able to pass him over the course of the race. Alfredo's different because he can on speed, finish where he's starting, and because of that, like that's why I go back. Like if I think Alfredo's optimal, then I'm probably going to build a lot of my lineups paying up for a lot of the place differential plays. And if he's not, then that hurts more of those place differential plays, more of those 10K guys. Like it's harder for them to get the optimal lineup without that low salary punt in your lineup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess the way that you're saying that then is if you're playing a guy like Alfredo, you're playing. I mean, it sounds like you're playing Kyle Larson anyways, but Joey Logano, maybe Alex Bowman, if you're playing those guys from the top, because those are the place differential guys you're looking for. Is that the right way you're looking at it?
Yeah, because I mean, like I just said, the example I'll put McDowell because he's a pretty bad play, and I can easily talk about lineups without worrying about a McDowell lineup working. So, say if you have Alfredo McDowell in there, that's $9,900 left. Like I said, throw in Larson into that, 94 left. Throw in Hamlin into that, $8,800 left. So that's where the whole Alfredo comes in. Like if you're paying that far down, $4,500, you can pay up for pretty much whoever you want. And we've already discussed guys starting inside the top 10 in the 8K range or in the low 8s that should score well. Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, William Byron, even somebody like Kevin Harvick at 9-1. You can easily put these guys in the lineup and pay up for 2 or possibly even 3 of the 10K guys in the back with place differential. Like that's why, like, if I believe Alfredo is going to be optimal, I might just, go all in on that.
I don't know. I don't think I like it now. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can go Alfredo starting 22nd. I mean, God, he just ran so bad, Brandon.
I know he's horrible. He's a talent. He's horrible. He's absolutely horrible.
Like
I would project
especially
him.
when we looked. I mean, we looked like all the value that's in this like 9K range. Like I don't think you need to go there. And what you're going to skip out on a guy like Busher or Cindric. I mean, there's great value there. I don't think we need to go to Alfredo this week. Like I think you can make great lineups. Like you can go. Like, do you really want to build a lineup with all the chalk PD guys up here up top? Like, I mean, like I don't think you want to combine those guys together. I think you're wanting to split those guys up. Do like a Larson lineup with some of these 9K range guys. Do like a Hamlin lineup with these groups of these 9K guys. Like I don't think you pair them. I think you separate them and hope one or two of them bust.
And we can get into that. Go ahead, Brendan.
I was going to say, looking at it, because Alfredo's horrible. Like right now, eyeballing it, I would project him for 29th. But I'll probably have probably going back to what I said. If I think that there's say like a 30% chance that Alfredo's optimal, I think that'll probably be my ownership on him. I could see myself having 30%, 35% Anthony Alfredo come Sunday.
Now, what if we do research of the week, we start seeing everybody else, that everybody else is on Alfredo and saying to punt to Alfredo? Then are you still going there?
Yeah, because he's the only punt play he's the only punt play because I've already told you I like Haley. Looking at the 5K range, where's Priest starting? I forgot.
He's starting 12th. Yeah, I think 5K range.
Yeah. So who do I like in the 5K range? I don't like McDowell. Priest almost has a harder time to hold on to that than Alfredo in his position. So I don't like Priest. I feel like LaJoie's kind of, maybe he'll gain 3 or 4 positions. So I don't like LaJoie. I don't like Smithley. I don't like Mills. I like Haley. I don't like Balicki. I don't like Gaze. Don't like BJ. Don't like Ware. Don't like Half. So the only 2 guys in the below 6K that I like is Haley and Alfredo. Those would probably be the guys I end up using this week.
So we can get into this middle range we kind of skipped over in a second. But Jason, the other guy we kind of skipped over, sounds like if people are paying up to the top, they're going to Kyle Larson. Joey Logano is 11-1. He starts 29th. Does that make Joey Logano a decent pivot player, or you think he's still going to be fairly popular?
I'm not really sure where people are going to come out on Logano. I mean, he's been pretty strong as of late. I mean, maybe recency bias gets people on him, but I mean, he just hasn't really performed well on the 1.5 miles so far this year. I know the rest of the Penske team has, so it doesn't really make much sense, but 11th best average running position at Atlanta, 10th at Vegas, 14th at Homestead, hasn't had more than 8 fast laps at any of these mile and a halves yet. I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of Logano this week, to be honest. Am I going to break it for 54 points? I got him for under 5x return on value. No, I'm more like in this top range. I'm going probably Larson, maybe Hamlin a little bit, but he's another guy who, like, if you guys checked out my quarterly review article that I put out last week, he's been great on the flat tracks, but when we look at him in the mile and a half, he hasn't had the dominating speed, but he should be good for a top 5. So I think he's a pretty safe play there. But yeah, the real range is that 9K range that we keep talking about. And I don't mean to keep skipping over Bowman. Bowman's a guy who I have right now is probably the 4th highest total on the board, DK points wise. So yeah, there's just so many. There's a lot of good plays up top too. So I don't know. It seems like everybody from like 8,600 up can score very well this week.
So then if you're 20 maxing, does that maybe you find a couple value guys? I'm not necessarily saying a 4,500 guy, but maybe, the guys in that 6K or range or something like that. We kind of talked about maybe like a Bush or something like that, where maybe you just go 70-75% on these guys and then just rotate these guys at the top.
No, I'm definitely going to probably narrow it down a little bit on these guys at the top. Like I'm going to find reasons to not play some of these guys and kind of plant my flag in a few of them.
I want to add this. This seems like a week to where at the low end, under, I'll say 7K. I already told you who I like under 6K. But under 7K, I'm going to have very few plays, and I'm going to try and play as many guys above that as possible. Like, I'm going to have the same core or around the same guys, in the value range, and then really spread out ownership to the top. Is that what you're going to do, Jason?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what he was saying. But I would probably maybe not spread it out as much to the top. But yeah, that's definitely a good strategy. But I don't think I'm going to really hit that 7K range at all, probably. I don't think I'll have much ownership to any of those guys.
So this middle range we kind of skipped over a little bit. We did talk about some of these guys in it, but let's go through this entire range. We'll start with Blaney. He's 9,500. Kurt Busch, 93. Harvick's 91. Byron is 88. Kyle Busch is 86. Those are kind of the guys we did mention. The other guys in this 8K range, Almirola is 84. Stenhouse is 82. Chris Bell is 8K. Eric Jones is 7,800. Brandon, that range, I know we've talked about some of the guys at the top, the Blaney, Harvick, Byron, Kyle Busch. Any other guys in this range you like?
Not really, man. I love Christopher Bell and William Byron right now. I don't see myself going anywhere. This is what I mean. Like if I'm locked in on Byron and Bell, on Haley or Alfredo, I might use 2 of those guys in each lineup and then just spread out at the top. That I see that being the best way to go about this, really, because we've seen Byron be extremely fast. He's led laps this year. If he can get around Keselowski, he doesn't have to really worry about anyone. Same thing with the Harvick argument. Like, it's those 3 guys racing each other at the start of this race. It's Keselowski, Byron, and Harvick. Whoever can pull out from that group, is going to be fine. Bell's the same situation. We've seen Bell be very fast this year. And then outside of that, in the 8K range, maybe Kyle Busch. But, it's a very small number of guys in that range that I want to even look at.
Yeah, and ditto on Byron. I got him projected as the 4th best value on the slate. Love Byron there at 8,800. But I would think in this range, the guys that Ryan pointed out, Bell's interesting. But, you can't sleep on the Ricky Stenhouse here starting 23rd. I know he's priced up, but still, even just a top 14, top 13 gets him close to that 5x value. And we know Ricky can show up on these mile and a half sometimes with strategy and fuel strategy and finish inside the top 10, top 8. So I don't think you can discount Ricky there at 8,200. Plus, he's also picking up fast laps this year. So,
anything we didn't talk about you guys want to mention for this race?
I don't think so. You got anything, Brandon?
I can't think of anything.
I think we probably talked about almost everybody except Newman. Well, I think we mentioned him because we said that I can't believe they priced him there. But I was so wanting Newman coming in this week. Like, I thought he'd fall into that low 6K range, and I was going to be all over that. But
nah.
Alas, 7,400.
So let's get into our two and done that we do. Here's what I'm gonna say: the weeks that I am very bad at our two and done are the weeks that I hit bets and the weeks that I cash in DraftKings. So if that's my trade off, then I'm okay with that.
That's a good trade off.
Yeah, right. It's like I'm gonna win some actual money. And the other side of that trade off, which made it, I'll say, tolerable for me, was that Brennan tried to talk me off Ricky Stenhouse. It was the right move, but he tried to talk me onto Denny Hamlin, which I think Denny Hamlin ended up with like 11 or 12 points, which I'd much rather take 7 points from Ricky Stenhouse than waste Denny Hamlin and get 11 points. So that's
Hamlin's a dumbass at these plate tracks, man. He caused 2 wrecks. He nearly killed a man, and then he nearly killed him again on the French. Like, literally, Hamlin's Dennis the Menace, my guy. I mean, why are you racing a lap down when the other luck dogs half the track around? Team orders, man. Got to get them cheating Toyotas a stage win. Got to get them stage points.
Kurt Busch up there 8 laps down. Like, what the hell are these guys doing?
All right, so let's recap last week's two and done. Jason had Ryan Preece, he had 29 points. Brandon had Michael McDowell, 45 points. And I had Ricky Stenhouse, obviously, who had 7. Did not,
Damn it.
Whatever. Brandon is now in first place. He's got 399. Jason is in second with 388. And let's just say I'm in third place. Now,
what's your score?
275.
All right. Well, I pretty much
so I'm gonna
try second place, I think.
Wait a minute. I got almost 120 more than you.
Yeah, and Jason's got 110 more. I'm a TV guy. I'm setting up these ratings. Wait till we get into these playoffs and I come storming back. This is like I've set this up where like I'm Chase Elliott. Like coming down to the end, I'm gonna have the fastest car and I'm gonna be good. But right now we're trying to.
Points don't reset, right? We're not resetting points.
Right now I'm Kyle Larson. I'm trying to pull the metal out of my engine so my car can start going, but we're not there yet. But I'm gonna try a new strategy this week, and this is gonna sound very stupid, but everything I've done so far hasn't worked, so nothing else can be worse than what I've done. So what I'm going to do is I know I have the first pick, but I'd like you two to pick first because I have no idea who I'm picking, and I'm trying to hear some logic, and I'm trying to use what your logic of picking your guys off of because it's not like you're going to pick a guy that I need to have this week. So we're going to go with Jason. I'm going to let you pick first.
So you're punting
second.
But wait, I got a question. So you want to hear our opinion on these guys?
Yeah.
Correct?
Well, I don't want to hear my own opinion, that's for sure.
Well, what did we just spend the last 40 minutes doing?
Well, but see, but
in
DFS,
relation
like,
to the
this
pick.
is different, because this is like where we talked about last week, where like Hamlin, like maybe he's not a good DFS play, but if he, he could lead 2 stages worth of points and get points, and then have a half
for only us because we're the only ones that are making these picks. Content for him. He specializes in the content towards its own needs.
It is my reputation that has already gone down the tube, but I'm trying to keep it as much as we can.
So my
Jason,
pick, right?
Your thoughts, your pick.
Okay. Who have I picked? All right, I picked pretty much everybody, right?
I can go down your list real quick.
Thank you.
Bubba, Chase, Truex. Well, Bubba, Chase twice, so you're done with Chase. Truex, Logano, Larson, Bell, Blaney, Hamlin, Preece.
I was gonna fucking take Chase, son of a bitch. no, I'm just joking. Give me William Byron.
Byron.
You know why I'm taking him? Because he's starting second. He should get me some stage points early. I think he's gonna run up front and get me stage points each time. Finish top 5. Mile and a half. Hendrick's been good a mile and a half. I haven't used him yet. William Byron. That's my strategy behind my pick, Brian.
And what does at least make me feel good about my thinking was that if I didn't use William Byron at Daytona, I wasn't going to punt this pick and I was going to take William Byron, but I did use him, so I didn't necessarily want to use up my Byron right now. So at least it makes me feel good that my initial pick was what Jason picked. That's always a good start. Brandon, who are you taking this week?
Have I used Christopher Bell yet?
You have not. You've used. I'll go down row.
No, I'm good. That's all I need to know. I'll use Christopher Bell.
Christopher Bell. And now we've got to me, where obviously I still have no decision. I don't know. It's just like whatever guy I pick is just not going to work out. That's just where I'm at right now. So I'm just going to pick somebody that.
You can do a 3 and done. We can change that for you.
No, because
here's Ryan. It's really
then it'll be a 4 and done. It'll be a 5 and done.
Pick the winner, Ryan. Pick the winner. It's really easy.
I'm trying to see who I have.
Yeah, who are you betting on this week?
Probably the guy who's going to crash.
If everybody was even, if everybody was even odds, even money, Who would you bet on?
All right. Well, I hate to use him here, but I don't want to use him up. I Oh my God, it's too much pressure. I can't do this. I
So let me
I
get
don't
this
know.
straight. You passed your first overall pick to us so you could thank
Yeah.
me. You still don't. So
Well,
you
no,
can
I was
hear
hoping
us out.
maybe like the power would go out and I wouldn't have to make a pick or something. That's kind of what I was hoping.
All right, let's make a pick.
All right. I'm just gonna use him for the second time already. I'm gonna use him up. I'm gonna take Kyle Busch.
Oh my God, Kyle Busch. No, just joking. That's a good pick. That's a solid pick.
To be honest, I wanted the pick that I was going to use. I didn't realize I'd already used him. I didn't even want to waste him. I definitely didn't want to waste him twice. I was going to pick Kevin Harvick, but I've already used him once. I'd like to have him later in the year, but if I hadn't used him, Harvick would have been the pick.
I almost went Harvick, to be honest, because I haven't picked him yet.
Yeah, I think this would have been a good week if I hadn't.
But I'm saving Harvick for when he hits his stride a little bit more.
Yeah, that's why I'd like to have one Harvick left. Not that it's going to matter at that point. I'll be down by 600 and something points, but whatever. All right, Jason, any final thoughts this week? Or if not, let the people know where they can find your stuff at.
Nope. Check my stuff out. FreeNASCARDFS.com. Article should do something for Truck Series. I haven't decided yet, but definitely gonna have something out for the Cup Series. And also, I do have, like I said, I mentioned, put out an article last week recapping the first quarter of the season. So I'd like for you guys to check that out. Go through salaries that we've seen and ownerships and who's been performing on what style tracks, and put a lot of time into it. So I appreciate you guys gave that a read. Check it out. FreeNASCARDFS.com. Follow me on Twitter at DFSNASCAR.
Brandon, your final thoughts or where they can find your stuff at?
Final thoughts. I think it's still going to be hard to pass the leader, and it's mainly going to be determined on restarts and on pit road, and that's always very, very frustrating. But that's about it. Brandon Cruz DFS, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon. This week, I think I'm going to do live shows this weekend. Probably just myself again, but I think I'm going to do live shows again this week. But that's how it is. You can check my videos out. They'll probably be up tomorrow, or they'll be up Thursday, because I don't know when you're going to listen to this. On my channel, man, that's about it.
Yeah, and everyone make sure you check out my stuff as well. My website, betwithbommel.com. We do bets for NASCAR, obviously do other sports as well. Been on a decent run with NASCAR. Had a couple good weeks. Last week was kind of but, when you're gambling, an week is, it's like when you leave Vegas and you haven't lost your entire bank account, it's a win. That's, kind of how we look at it. Always just kind of out there having fun, putting a couple bets out. If they hit, they hit. If they don't, you move on with your week. Make sure you follow me as well on Twitter, Gambling DFS Tips on Twitter. It's same stuff. You find on my website, Gambling DFS, all that kind of stuff. Especially when NFL season comes back around, I'll be doing a lot of that stuff. And as always, thank you guys for listening. We always say this, that we love doing this stuff, especially being able to put out a podcast for free and doing all of this, and you guys listening, and then whatever platform you're on, subscribing, rating, review, comment, all that kind of stuff. We always like suggestions and always are here to help you guys what you guys need. So if there's anything, suggestions for content or how we run the show or anything we can add, or maybe stuff that's not as important or stuff like that, always out there for suggestions. But thank you guys obviously for listening. Brandon, Jason, as always, thank you guys for joining me. We are back next week. It is I think it's Mother's Day, right? Darlington. Did I do that right? Is that where we're at? I think Darlington. So everyone, best of luck this week at Kansas. On behalf of Jason and Brandon, I'm Ryan Baumel. Thank you guys for listening. And as always, we end this episode with Brandon's favorite line: no whammies.